Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Around the World in 40 Tales. My name is Doreen Vanderstoep, and I am here today with my fellow Storytelling Alberta member, Ginger Mullen. Welcome, Ginger.
Thanks, Doreen, for inviting me to be part of this great project.
It is wonderful to have you here, to be sure. Ginger will be performing a story today from the Szechuan province in South China called The Dragon's Pearl. Now, before we begin, I want to acknowledge, in a spirit of gratitude and reconciliation, that Storytelling Alberta operates on the traditional territories of the Indigenous signatories to Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. This land includes the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Now, I just want to tell everyone a little bit more about you, Ginger, before you dive into your story. Ginger Mullen's immersion into the oral tradition has led to a unique storytelling style that blends performance and scholarship. Having earned a Master of Arts that focused on folk tales in general and the Ballad of Tam Lin in particular, she brings to her craft a deep and layered understanding of the stories she tells. Currently, she juggles several roles that draw on her multidisciplinary knowledge. She has taught storytelling at Mount Royal University in Calgary and the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. She presents papers about various folktales both nationally and internationally, and she continues to tell stories and facilitate programs for schools and community organizations. Ginger, please take it away.
Thank you so much. So this story is a bittersweet story, and I've always been drawn to stories that are reflective and have that bittersweet quality to them. So I'm so happy to share this one with you today. A long time ago, in the Szechuan province of China, a boy lived with his mother by the great River Min. Now, the father in the family had died, and so this young boy, he had to help his mother earn the money to provide for them. And he did this as a grass cutter. He would take his little sickle and he would go out into the country fields and he would cut grass and put it into a wheelbarrow and take the grass to market and sell it to the farmers for their animals. Now, he didn't make much money doing this, but he and his mother always seemed to have enough rice to keep their bellies full. They had enough for the shabby clothes on their back, and they had each other, so they were quite happy together. Now, one year there was a terrible drought, and the grass started to dry up, and the boy had to go further and further from home looking for grass to sell. Meanwhile, at home, the rice jar became less and less full, and the boy was worried that they would starve. Now, one morning, he woke up extremely early. The hunger pangs woke him up. And so he just got up and he just started walking, hoping to find something. And he walked and he walked. And soon the sun was high in the sky. And he was about to give up when he saw out of the corner of his eye a flash of green. And so he went a little farther. And he was so happy he did, because there was this small patch of grass. Not much larger than a carpet, really, but it was lush and green. And he took his sickle and he cut the grass and he took it to the market and he sold it for a good amount of money because grass was scarce. So he went back the next morning hoping to find more grass nearby, and he couldn't believe that the grass, the same grass he had cut the day before, had grown overnight. And it was even taller. The day before, it had been up to his ankle, and now it was mid-calf. Well, he wasn't one to question luck. He cut the grass, he took it to the market, he sold it, he came back the third day. The grass had grown again, even taller. Now it was almost up to his knees. Now, it was a long walk to get to the grass and then back to his village for the market. And so he thought a good idea would be to dig up the grass very carefully and replant it by his house. That way he could cut that amazing grass in the morning and then have the rest of the day to himself. And so as he was very carefully digging up the grass, he saw this strange clump of earth, and he grabbed it, and he kind of crumbled the mud and the dirt. And there was a pearl. The biggest pearl you can imagine, and it had this sheen to it. It was very exciting, but he had work to do. So he put it into his pocket. He finished digging up the grass, took it home, he planted the grass, and then before he went to bed, he remembered the pearl and he showed his mother. She said, "We are going to get so much money for that pearl." Oh, they were so grateful. And for safekeeping, they put that pearl into their near empty jar of rice. And they went to bed. And in the morning, the boy woke up so excited. He thought maybe the grass would be past his knees today. And he ran outside and his heart sank. That grass had died overnight, withered and died. Well, at least he had the pearl. And he went to go check on the pearl and he couldn't believe it. "Mother, mother, come quick." And she came. She was worried that the pearl was missing, but in fact, it was just the opposite. That near empty jar of rice was now full to the brim with that pearl sitting right on top. "Oh," she said, "my son, I think that you have found a magical dragon's pearl, a pearl that multiplies everything that it touches." And so they tested this pearl. They put it into their near empty jar of oil, and within minutes, it was full of oil. So they took that pearl and decided to check it with their money box. And they opened the lid and they put the pearl in and they closed the lid. And when they opened it, the few coins that they had had in it were now hundreds. The box was full. They couldn't believe it. It was a dragon's pearl. And so you can imagine they did not sell that pearl. They used it to replenish everything that they needed to survive. And they shared with their neighbors, so everyone had enough rice, everyone had enough food, everyone had enough clothing. The only thing that couldn't be done was water. The pearl could not make more water. But that's okay. There was enough left in the River Min, which was now more like a stream, and so they all survived. Now one day, as the boy and his mother were sitting down to a meal, the door burst open and two men came in, and they said, "Give us that pearl, woman. You're wasting it, sharing it with these villagers." And they started to knock over furniture and go through their things. And the mother, she tried to hide the boy behind her to protect him, but he remembered those pangs of hunger, and he did not want to feel that way again. And so he darted out and he went to where they were hiding the pearl, and he grabbed it and he popped it into his mouth. And the men saw him. And one of them came over and looked straight at him and said, "Give us that pearl, boy." And the man looked at him again and said, "Give us that pearl, or we'll make you give it to us." And the boy looked. And the man took him by the shoulders and shook him so hard that instead of spitting out the pearl, he swallowed it. And as that pearl went down, past his lips, down his throat, to his stomach, he started to feel as if he were on fire. And pretty soon his whole body, from his toes to the tip of his head, felt completely on fire. And he drank what little water there was. It didn't help. So he ran down to the Min River, the River Min, which was now more like a stream, as I said, and he began to cup that water and drink it, trying to quench that burning sensation. And as he did this, the skies darkened and lightning flashed, and the boy began to change. His head became a camel's head, and his eyes became rabbit's eyes. His ears stretched out into deer horns. And his long neck, his neck stretched out into a long, slithery snake. And his arms and his legs became tiger paws. And his fingernails and toenails stretched out into long eagle talons. And finally, his boyish skin became fish scales. The boy had turned into a Chinese dragon. And his mother had watched. The men had long ago run away, but his mother watched in horror as this had happened to her son. And he opened his great dragon mouth to console her, and thunderclouds came out. And within minutes, it was raining. And the villagers came out, and they were so happy. The drought was over. And they say that that village never experienced a drought again. And they say that for every day for the rest of her life, that mother went down to the banks of the river to catch a glimpse of her son. And they also say that to this very day, that boy lives there as the guardian dragon of the River Min in the Szechuan province of China. Thank you so much to Tales for helping and promoting stories throughout Alberta for the last 40 years. Thanks, Doreen.
Thank you, Ginger, for your beautiful story, and as always, beautifully told. Amazing. If anybody wants to reach out to Ginger or any of us at Storytelling Alberta, they can email us at info@storytellingalberta.com. And do visit our website, www.storytellingalberta.com, where we have many, many links to stories that celebrate our 40th anniversary this year. Ginger, thank you again so much for being part of this series. And thank you to all our listeners for joining us around the world.